Oversight and Government Reform Committee, Republican Congressman Jim Jordan of Ohio. He is the founding member of the House Freedom Caucus and served as its first chairman.
Congressman, I'm so glad you're here.
Good to be with you.
I'm a little nervous. For 8 years, Republicans under George W. Bush justified record spending, record deficits, record debt. He was our guy. We were fighting a war. We get the Supreme Court justice we want. And he helped move us towards bankruptcy. And Republicans swore, and I know you did too, when we get in power again, we're not going to repeat the same mistakes.
Right.
Can you tell me that the budget that we pass, that you guys pass, that Congress passes, is not going to take a $20 trillion debt to a $30 trillion debt?
You're right. $20 trillion is serious. And we're debt to GDP now 1-to-1. That's a dangerous place to be. Mick Mulvaney is a good guy, one of the founding members of the Freedom Caucus as well. I like what they rolled out yesterday. Increased defense spending, but offset it with cuts to the non-defense spending. I think that's exactly what we talked about during the campaign. I think that's the right thing to do. And I have a lot of confidence in Mr. Mulvaney over at OMB, and I have confidence that the administration is going to do the right thing.
But most conservatives understand that unless you talk about real entitlement reform, you're never going to fix what's ailing this country. Tom Coburn and I always would talk about $50–60 trillion in IOUs that we aren't even touching. How do we get entitlement reform out there to save Social Security and save?
Well, I think the president's been clear he doesn't want to deal with that first. So we got other things. We got to repeal and replace Obamacare, reform the tax code. You need to create an environment conducive to economic growth. I think that's what the president wants to do. I think he's going to talk about some of those things this evening. That's certainly what we want to do in the House and in the Congress.
So moments ago on the Today Show, Speaker Paul Ryan talked about the future of Obamacare. Take a look.
Your predecessor made your job a little tougher last week. John Boehner came out and he said all this talk about repeal and replace, it's not going to happen. He says it's happy talk. What they're going to do is they're going to fix some bad parts of Obamacare and wrap it in a conservative box. That is not repeal and replace.
That is not what we are doing. Let me just say it this way. Obamacare is collapsing. We really believe we're in a rescue mission here to step in and prevent this collapse from occurring further.
I just want
to do it.
Shave.
Shave. Anyhow.
Anyway, so there you go. Obamacare. So you want to repeal it?
Of course. That's what we told
you want to repeal it and replace it at the same time, or repeal it first?
What about
how do you do that?
Repeal it with one bill, replace with another. There's one plan that's been put forward that does that.
Then you own it. You really want to own that?
We want to do what the voters.
You want to own
we want to do what the voters told us. What we told the voters we're going to do.
But you really want to own that.
So, well, do they think about where we're at today?
Yeah.
Think about Obamacare said we're going to have all these mandates, all these taxes, all these regulations. They drove up the cost of insurance. They told Americans you have to buy it, and if you don't, you get penalized. And it's a complete disaster. Remember everything we were told about this law. It turned out to be false. Remember Jonathan Gruber? New York Times called him the architect of Obamacare. He told us they lied to us. They lied to the American people to pass this disaster we call Obamacare.
So let me ask you.
So we have to repeal it because that's what we told the voters we were going to do. We have to replace it with a patient-centered plan.
The Democrats know that Obamacare is collapsing. Max Baucus, the architect of Obamacare, says it's collapsing. Why don't you just sit back and say, all right, Democrats, we can let this collapse on your watch, or you can work with us to come up with a solution?
Two things. That's not what we told the voters we're going to do, but most importantly, that's not helping the families across this country who are hurting right now, who have fewer choices, higher premiums, higher deductibles. So let's do what we said. And look, we have a plan that's put forward that actually empowers patients, doctors, families, takes the control from Washington, the focus from Washington, and gives it back to people, actually creates a marketplace. The only plan out there, the only plan put in bill text form, the only plan out there is the one the House Freedom Caucus has brought forward.
Do you still have a federal guarantee for pre-existing injuries being covered in that?
What we said, we want to bring back affordable insurance so working class families, middle class families can now afford insurance, which they
But do you have that federal guarantee for pre-existing injuries?
I think that's entirely reasonable. But we think that if 26-year-olds, as an example, want to stay on their parents' plan, we think the marketplace do that. We also say there's a 2-year window where pre-existing, if you have insurance, you get to keep your coverage. We want to reward responsible behavior. Right now, we have this perverse incentive in Obamacare which says you never have to get insurance, but then when something bad happens, they have to issue it to you. That's like saying you can buy homeowners insurance when your house is on fire. That just drives up the cost for everyone else. So we want to bring back insurance that's affordable for working class families. That's our plan.
So Mark, a lot of problems here, obviously, that Republicans are going to have to deal with. One, they're going to have to get a House bill and a Senate bill lined up together. And then after they finish that momentous task, then they've got to get the president on board, who's not going to be willing, most likely, to sign anything that doesn't have a federal guarantee of pre-existing conditions and a federal guarantee of people staying on their parents' health care until they're 25, 26.
Well, those, I think, can get resolved. The more complicated issues are taxes, how to deal with Medicaid, how to pay for the changes. Congressman, one of the things the president's been criticized for by you and others was not being honest about what his plan would do, and with the fact that there'd be losers under his plan, people who are worse off than they were under the previous status quo. Who are the losers under the House plan? Who will do worse?
The losers are people right now under Obamacare.
No one will pay more. No one will have worse coverage under your plan than the status quo.
Think about where we're at now. Remember what they told us. Like your plan, keep your plan. Like your doctor, keep your doctor. Premiums will decline. They went up 25.
You're pointing out some things they said that weren't true.
Yeah, they sold us the Caribbean cruise, and we got the Titanic.
Anyone in America be worse off than they are now under the House plan? There must be people
How can they be
off.
worse off than what they are now? Higher premiums, fewer choices, higher deductibles. How are they going to be worse off than what we currently have?
Every provider,
We're not going to promise that, but what we're going to promise is bringing back affordable health insurance. You implement our plan, the only plan out there. You implement our plan, which put on President Trump's desk the exact same legislation we put on President Obama's desk that he vetoed. That's the repeal part. The replacement part is a plan that empowers people, encourages health savings accounts, allows the interstate shopping for insurance, allows easier association.
I know there's upside. I know you see upside to your plan, but I'm asking you to not make the same mistake the previous president made, which is who are people, providers or patients, who will be worse off under your plan than they are right now?
I don't know how anyone could be worse off than what we have now.
So you're saying no one?
I don't know how anyone can be.
So no one can be.
I don't think you can make that blanket statement. But what I can say is I know how bad off people are today. Yeah. Working class families, middle class families, and I know what they said on November 8th. Yeah. They said we want you to repeal it and replace it.
So let's talk about this.